and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 136, and the title of this episode is Governments Keeping the Illusion While the World Collapses. And before I start, I just want to welcome all the new people that have been joining us here at X22 Report, and all of you that have been listening to me. Thank you very much. And all those people who have donated, I really do appreciate it. It does go to keep everything running and everything up. And I gave the list on the right-hand side of the X22report.com site, so you can take a look at that. For all those new people, if you don't know this, every day I put up, especially those people on YouTube, those people who are new, I put up daily alerts, Sentinel alerts, and if you just click on the Sentinel alert tab itself, it'll bring you to the current Sentinel alerts, and also I have a drop-down for the archived ones. And you can come to the site, and I have other things on there. I have a dynamic timeline of everything that's been going on, and I continually update that timeline. And you can come over and take a look. And if you don't want to wait for the YouTube video version, I always upload the audio version between 5 and 7 o'clock. And you can come, and it's an MP3. You can download it to your iPad, your iPhone, your phone, or down on your computer, and you don't have to stay on the site, or you can just listen to it right on the site and hit play, any way you want to do it. Okay, let's get into the economic collapse news. And we're going to go out to Greece. And we talked about this before, how people weren't paying their taxes and the tax collectors went into Greece to get the taxes. Well, now the authorities are going to start to seize assets. And people have been writing to me and saying, well, if people don't have work, why do they have to pay taxes? Well, you have to remember, those people who are laid off within a year and who've worked 8 months or a year, they still have to pay their taxes for the time they worked. Now, if they get a refund, that's a whole different story. But if they owe money, they still have to pay the taxes. And again, if you're out of work, it makes it very difficult to pay taxes. But the Greek tax authority will seize assets of businesses and individuals who do not settle their tax debts. And they are giving them a certain period of time, within 20 days, for those who owe more than 10,000 euro. They want them to come in and set up a payment plan, or pay it full, however they can get it done. And right now, Greece currently has one of the lowest tax collection rate as a proportion of GDP. And again, their unemployment is hovering very close to 30%. The youth unemployment is around 60%, and it's expected to go even higher than that. Now, Cyprus, on the other hand, who received a bail-in and a bailout, who still has capital controls in effect, going on about 120 days, where people cannot take out their money. Their money is frozen. They were lied to, saying that they're only going to take out, what was it, 4, maybe 10%. They took 47% of their wealth out of the banks itself, and replaced the other with worthless stock paper, and the rest of it's frozen. But Cyprus' economic contraction deepened in the second quarter after the country agreed to wage cuts and the closure of its second largest lender to secure an international bailout. The gross domestic product declined by 1.4% from the first quarter, when it fell 1.7%. And unemployment in Cyprus rose 32% in July from the same month of 2012. And things are not getting better there. Things are getting worse. I mean, the mainstream media, the governments, they can spin it any way they want. But again, think of yourself if right now you couldn't get your money out of the bank. And those people who still have a lot of their money in the bank, think about this. You wake up one day and they tell you the accounts are frozen and you cannot remove your money. And you're allowed only to take out $100 or so. And you only can do this once a week. And you cannot again, you'll never get your money because they're going to take and shave off 35% of it, and the rest they're going to freeze and give you worthless bank stock paper. Well, if you think about it, this is a very tough situation, and it makes it very difficult for people to go out and trust and to spend and to do any and live their lives. These bail-ins are coming to Europe, they are coming to Canada, they are coming to the US. Documentation has already been created. Terms of service for banks have been changed. Just go take a look at your bank's terms of service. Most of them say because of cyber attacks, storms, war, riots, if there's any type of computer malfunction. There's also documents created by the U.S. and the Bank of England, which will allow bail-ins, and Canada also is passing bills, and the same thing in Europe. I put some of these documents on the x22report.com site. If you go to the tab that says resources and documents, they are listed there. And just go to your bank and take a look at your terms of service. I looked at Citibank, Bank of America, and I think someone else looked at a bank in Pennsylvania, and they were all changed, and they all say the same thing. Now, I know the mainstream media is out there telling everyone that the housing recovery is doing well. President Obama was, going around on his campaign circuit telling everyone that the housing market is rebounding and everything is fantastic. Hurrah for the housing market. But in reality, we have to look at this. Mortgage rates are rising. Yesterday I told you about furniture, the home furnishing, gardening supplies sales are down. New construction, builders like D.R. Horton and other builders are saying traffic is slowing now. J.P. Morgan, Wells Fargo are laying off people in their mortgage divisions. Not two people, not one, hundreds of people they are laying off. And we also see that mortgage apps are falling by over 50% in the last 3 months. And because of all this, we are now seeing the sales of homes start to fall. And on this page on the site, I put up it's from Zero Hedge. It's a graph of the mortgage apps taking a dip, and it's also showing you that now the sales peaking to the top, now starting to move down, because there is always a lag between mortgage applications taking a dive and sales of homes, and now we're starting to see it. Now, there was something very interesting in King World News, and this is from John Embry, and I'll read some of it to you here. I've thought for a long time that this thing was going to ignite in the latter part of the year, and I think the fuse has now been lit. Right now, the central planners are finally capitulating. They gambled and went all in attempt to bring the spirit of gold and silver investors around the world. Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev, I'll try this again, Medvedev, where he advised all Russians to get their money out of all Western banks because there was going to be bail-ins. This is going to lead to the largest transfer of wealth in history by far. Those people that are in bank deposits, bonds, financial stocks, are going to see their purchasing power virtually destroyed. They are going to see their wealth transferred, and they will lose everything. And there are many people out there saying the same thing, and this will definitely happen because we have to remember. And I remember back in 2008, I have a relative who works in car sales, General Motors, and when the crash of 2008 came along, and he worked in the car industry for probably 40 years now, and he saw his entire retirement completely disappear when the crash happened. And we have to remember there were reports out there that Americans lost 38% of their wealth during this period. From that point, and this is when people were doing well. They owned their homes. They had jobs. They were in, the stock market. They were taking out equity loans. They, everything was fine. Unemployment was very, very low. Now we have tons of foreclosures. We have the Fed printing $85 billion a month to buy treasury bonds and the toxic real estate assets from banks. Banks are not loaning out the money they receive from the Fed, but instead pumping up the equity markets. And we are seeing all of this take place right now. And the difference between 2008 and now is that everyone is worse off. And those people who've lost their wealth before and those who have not will lose even more this time around, because this is the big one. And those people, because a lot of things have changed also, the government okayed the bailouts last time. This time, there are no bailouts. This time, they changed all documents for bail-ins. That means they're going directly after your money. If it's in the bank, it is gone. That's really what they're saying. Okay. And just another point of this, and this is why everyone's saying to put your money into gold and silver. Again, I do not sell gold or silver, and I buy gold and silver myself. And they're telling you this because over time, gold and silver retain their value. Paper does not. If you buy, there's a couple of reasons why gold and silver are very good. Gold and silver, they're insurance policies. You buy insurance for your automobile. You buy insurance for your health. You buy insurance for your home. Why not buy insurance for your money? Makes sense. Well, that is gold and silver. The other reason why gold and silver is very good, it gets you out of the system. If you have physical gold, silver, even other precious metals, platinum, palladium, you're out of the system. You're no longer in paper money. Your money is no longer digitized in a bank. So, for example, if there were bail-ins and let's say you had, I don't know, 150,000 in the bank or so, for those wealthy people out there, you have 150,000, and their bail-ins come. They take, let's say, 50,000 from you, and they leave you with 100. But did they really leave you with 100? Because what they're going to do is they're going to take the other amount and replace it with worthless paper. And they're going to freeze the money so you can't even get to it. Now, if you had gold and silver, it's preserved. They can't touch it. They can't get to it. There's no way. I mean, yes, they can come to your house, or unless you're not storing it at your house or someplace else, they can come get it. But when the bail-ins happen, they can't touch it. Okay, let's move on here. Now, 10 ways Obamacare will affect your medical care. Now, I've been saying for quite a while right now that Obamacare is not for the people. We're seeing, even in Congress, Democrats, and I am not a Republican Democrat, I don't really care. They're all the same to me. Everyone is exactly the same. All I care about is people in government to be for the people. That's it. There should be no sides. There should be no parties. It should be we are here for the people, period. That is it. That's what our job is here for. And now the Democrats are trying to move themselves away from Obamacare. We heard the staffers complain that these premiums are too high. We heard businesses cutting down hours and making positions part-time, even though in Obamacare they add up the hours and they tell you how many full-time people you have, and there's penalties for businesses and people who don't want to take this monstrosity. But there are other things here, and there's 10 of them that will affect your medical care. Your private insurance premiums will cost more and more each year. You will lose the choice and flexibility in health insurance policies. Reimbursements will continue to drop. Fewer and fewer doctors will take Medicare. And for those 65 and older, or Medicaid, people younger than 65. 4. Fewer doctors accepting Medicare and Medicaid causes an increase in wait times for appointments and decrease in number and types of specialists available at these plans. 5. Studies from various organizations and states have consistently shown that Medicaid recipients have longer waits for medical care, fewer options for specialists, and poorer medical outcomes. Number 6. As more people enter the taxpayer-funded plans, instead of paying for private insurance, the cost to provide this increased medical care and medications will escalate, leading to higher taxes. 7. With no eligibility verification in place, millions of people who are in the U.S. illegally will be able to access taxpayer-funded medical services. Number 8. High expenditures to provide medical services lead to rationing of medical care and treatment options to reduce cost. 9. Under current regulation, if medical care is denied by Medicare, then a patient is not allowed to pay cash to a Medicare contracted physician or hospital or other health professional. 10. Expect a loss of medical privacy. Beginning in 2014, if you participate in government health insurance, your health records will be sent to a centralized federal database with or without your consent. And this is being used to collect information on every single person. It's also going to be used to show those people who are seeing a psychologist or a psychiatrist who have mental problems, to allow the doctor to say that this person cannot own a weapon, which fits right into the executive orders that the president created a while back, that states that people with medical problems and things like that cannot own a weapon. Okay. Now, there is a Obamacare provision which is called forced home inspection, and the Health and Human Services on their website states that your family will be targeted if you fall under the high-risk categories. And these are families where mom is not yet 21, families where someone is a tobacco user, families where children have low student achievement, developmental delays or disabilities, and families with individuals who are serving or formerly served in the armed forces, including such families that have members of the armed forces who have had multiple deployments outside the United States. And that is another section under the Obamacare, and we're seeing more and more of these sections being unearthed from this 1,000-page document. And again, Congress, the government, they're trying to separate themselves from this Health Insurance Affordable Act law, because they're starting to realize this is not for the people, and especially for them. Now, we hear a lot about the economy and retail, and there was a report yesterday that retail, is because of gas prices, was up a little bit. But we're seeing other information like Macy's, for example, and hopefully everyone knows what Macy's is. It's one of the largest department stores in the U.S., and this goes on to say that Macy's reported an unexpected decline in sales and blamed consumers' hesitation to spend on non-essentials, leading deeper markdowns and a disappointing profit. And what happened is people are not going out again. If the unemployment rate is truly 7.4% and dropping, and the economy is getting better, and people are doing well, and everything looks rosy, stores would not be closing down. Again, and I'll refer back to the USA Today article back in February, where they named many, many stores like JCPenney's, which is having a very tough time, GameStop, Radio Shack, Best Buy, and Barnes & Noble. These stores were closing hundreds and hundreds of retail chains. Now we're seeing Macy's also reporting that sales are down. The reason for this is because you can just hide what is going on and keep the illusion for so long until the real numbers actually come out, and stores and businesses start to report that things aren't as good as they are. Yes, the government right now, they can manipulate the numbers and show that unemployment is at 6%. But the reality is, if that is true and the real estate market is taking off, why do we see all these other things occurring? After a while, the numbers and reality don't make sense, and they start to disconnect. Just like the stock market and the real economy, there's a huge disconnect happening, and we're seeing this more and more. But I just wanted to point out here that in Reuters, what they show, what the mainstream media shows everyone else out there, and they read the headlines and they read the first couple of sentences, and they're like, oh, everything looks great. And this is why they're building this up for the fall time period and showing that everything is going well. And this goes on to say, U.S. in modest recovery, Fed to cut back on QE next month. The U.S. economy is on a modest yet sturdy recovery path that will bring down the jobless rate to 7%, leaving the Federal Reserve on track to ease off on its stimulus program next month. And it even goes on further. This Bill Cheney says that he's expecting the jobless rate to average 6.7% in the second quarter of next year. And the consensus is 7%. And it is predicted, he's also saying it is predicted to grow by 2.6% toward the end of 2013. And the economy. And just under two-thirds of economists polled say that the Fed will cut back on its quantitative easing program in September. So when you read all this, it sounds like they're on the right track. Unemployment's coming down. The economy is growing, because you have to remember, how did they make the economy grow with GDP? Oh, that's right. They changed the calculation. They're including research and development, hamburgers, tires, the fans spinning, and they're going all the way back to 1929 and recalculating GDP to show everything is going well, just like they did with the unemployment rate. And to everyone out there who is reading this, they believe, and I've spoken to people around my area, they all believe the economy is recovering and everything is going perfectly. And what we see happening here is there are signs and there are indicators showing the opposite, actually. And what I believe is going to happen, I've said this over and over, and Michael Pento's saying this, I think Greg Mannarino has said this, and John Embry's saying this, and Peter Schiff is saying this, and a lot of other people are saying this. Come this fall, something is going to happen. Now, I don't know the exact time. People are saying October. People are saying September. I'm saying within the fall to beginning of winter, what I call the first part of the collapse is going to happen. They are building the propaganda up, and we have to think back to 2008, what happened there. Ben Bernanke kept on saying that the subprime is contained. They do not forecast a recession at all. Just AIG had a little bit of a problem. They'll just need one bailout. And everything seems perfect until everything started to collapse and fall apart. But the public believe this. The same thing is happening right now. Everything is great. Unemployment's coming down. GDP is going up. The stock market is hitting all-time new highs, except for today. It's back down again, but it's still up there, and we're seeing this wavering up and down now. And things are going to crash and crash hard. Now, the reason why I say it's going to happen soon is because there's a lot of factors involved. We have the Middle East problems. We have the buildup of China and Russia, the United States, South Korea, North Korea, Iran, Syria, and many of these countries all preparing for war. And to cover this up, they will use an event that will not really collapse the economy, but make it crash during the fall. And this way, they'll be able to move the blame off the government and Fed and onto another country, because there are a lot of things happening at this point. And we are definitely going to see something happen, and it will happen during this time period. So if you haven't taken some of your money out of the bank, I would start. If you haven't invested in gold and silver, I would start. If you haven't started purchasing food, water, supplies, medical supplies, toiletries, batteries, solar-powered light generators, all those things, I would start doing it. Of course, weapons, that is a must. And because something is going to happen, and you need to be prepared for any type of situation that's coming up. Okay, now let's move on here. Now, there's a lot happening in Egypt today. Egypt declared a nationwide state of emergency. Now, let's really call it what it really is. It's martial law. They declared martial law in Egypt, and because the uprising from the people who are pro-Morsi and the government that is in power right now, they are clashing. The U.S. and the U.S. government, central bankers, Israel, they're all pushing this because they are so afraid of losing the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency and the control over Egypt, that they've made this into this fight, which we're seeing now all over the Middle East. We're seeing in Yemen, they're using drones to weed out those people that would cause an uprising. We see it in Tunisia. We see it in Saudi Arabia. We see it in Bahrain. We see it in Libya, Lebanon, Iraq. We're seeing in every single country and in the Middle East. And we see that this martial law, there is a curfew, which will continue from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m., and this looks like it's a month-long emergency shutdown or martial law, whatever you want to call it, and to try to calm everything down at this point. And we'll have to see what happens. Plus, the vice president resigned. It was the temporary vice president resigned his post, and this is really starting to build up all over the place. And the Saudi prince who defected, Saudi prince, is saying that in his country, Saudi Arabia, they're starting to see the same thing, where the people are starting to make the move of rising up against the puppet government that is controlling the country, and which is the U.S. country, the U.S. Government and central bankers controlling these countries because they need to keep the U.S. dollar and the privately owned Western central banks continually operating in these countries. And we're seeing this complete breakdown in the Middle East at this point, which is definitely going to lead to something much, much bigger. Because, it's just, there's just so much people will take until they rise up, and we're seeing this all over. And talking about countries building up for war, we're seeing India is launching a spy satellite now by month end, and India goes on to say it is for strategic purposes, and they say this only means that it is for defense purposes, and it is a spy satellite. It is a satellite for military communication network, and Japan is really pushing to change their constitution from a pacifist nation to a nation that would defend allies or attack if they needed to. And a government panel on security issues will propose that Japan defend not only the United States, but also other allied nations under attack by exercising its rights of collective self-defense. And this is what they're trying to change there. And Japan can exercise the right when countries with close ties with it are under attack and it deemed to do harm to Japan. And we have to remember, Japan just launched their largest warship since World War II. And we also see now Russia building a new anti-missile radar system. And the construction of an advanced early missile warning radar will begin on Tuesday, Central Russia, to enhance the capabilities of countries' missile defenses. And this goes on to say that they have new assembly technology which allows the construction of radars to be much, much faster. In the past, it used to take 5 to 9 years, and as a result, the radar deployment period has been reduced to 12 to 18 months. And we see Russia now moving into Iran and making a deal with a nuclear cooperation with Iran, which this will make it much more difficult for the U.S. government, central bankers, Israel, to claim that Iran is building a nuclear weapon if Russia is also there, and they will, they can use this propaganda to say that Russia is helping them build the nuclear weapon. But then again, we have to go back in time, and we realize that the U.S. government, central bankers, Israel, have been saying that Iran has been building a nuclear weapon for over 20 years. And guess what? They're always 3 to 5 years in making this nuclear weapon. And in a couple of my other reports, I have a whole timeline going all the way back of all different times that people said that they're 3 to 5 years out, and it's probably been over 25 years that they've been saying this. Now, a political analyst says that the U.S. will not be able to win this war in Syria with these rebels. The paid mercenaries, they're really paid mercenaries from CIA. And it goes on to say that the United States is assured of its failure in the ongoing war in Syria, as the government of al-Assad is making great strides and winning all the battles and pushing the rebels back. And this analyst thinks that the U.S. will just pack up and go away. Well, no, that's not what's going to happen. The U.S. and the central bankers and Israel are going to move forward into invading Syria one way or another, with Russia on having Syria's back, because they getting to the point where they don't care anymore, because it's their last ditch effort, and they know that they need to make Syria and Iran use the dollar as the reserve currency, because they are losing ground on other countries. And the US dollar will eventually lose the status of the US of the reserve currency of the world. And yesterday I went on to say that Dempsey was in Israel, and they're creating this plan to actually create this no-fly zone. And I went through it. There were like 11 points or so about how they're going to do this. And it's the U.S., British, French, and Saudi United Arab Emirates will establish a no-fly zone over central and southern Syria, and they're going to do this with, again, paid troops that were trained by the U.S. The United States government has troops standing by in Jordan just in case something doesn't go the way it was planned to go. And eventually, when all of this doesn't work, or if it does work and Russia gets involved, we're going to see World War III take off at this point. Now, we had Obama telling us about the NSA reform promises. They put a liar to head up the review committee, the person who said, I think it was Clapper, who said, we are not spying on Americans, and he basically just lied. And there was a poll done, and now this poll says 11% trust, only 11% trust Obama's NSA reform promises. They're not going to do anything. The Hagel, I believe, was out there saying that they're going to expand the amount of spying that they're doing right after Obama said this. The spying is meant for each and every one of you who are listening. They want to know who you are working with, who you know, if you're part of a group. Do we need to come and collect you when the time comes? Are you a threat to the government? Will you rise up when things go bad? And they will not stop this. Plus, that's one part of it. As of right now, they're also, using it for blackmail, getting investment tips, stealing patent ideas, making money off of it. So there are many, many different things that they're using this for. Now, there was an interesting report out there saying that Obama will sign the UN gun treaty while Congress is on vacation, and we know that Congress is now on vacation, I believe, until after through the month of August, and I think up to Labor Day. And what we know is that the UN Arms Treaty, the Gun Bill, and CISPA, they are all pending in the Senate. Now, Obama will have to get the Senate to vote okay on the UN gun treaty so it gets to his desks so he can sign off on it. How are they going to do this? We will have to see. But it's very interesting that he's waiting for Congress and the government to be on vacation during the month of August to do this. And John Kerry said this a while back, that they will have this signed by the end of August. Now, since all these things are pending in the Senate, they could do what they're doing now and hopefully they get it through, or they might have to create some type of event to push these bills through. And there could be a shooting event. It could be a bomb with black gunpowder. It could be anything to push these things through, especially CISPA, which is the Internet bill. And again, President Obama said he's going to veto it, but he set up all the executive orders uh, that support CISPA. So, his actions speak louder than his words. And we could see many different events occur coming up. Now, in my reports, I always talk about the central bankers, the governments. They need to control two things: the creation of money, which they do control, and the flow of information, which they partly do. They control the mainstream media, and they thought that was great, and they had control. They can give us the stories they want us to believe, and that's that. But their funny thing called the internet popped up, and now all these alternative media, pictures, and other things going on, and people are getting news from different sources. John Kerry came out to say that this little thing called the internet makes it much harder to govern. And I'm just going to read a couple of things that he has said. Secretary of State John Kerry said this little thing called the internet makes it much harder to govern. He also said that ever since the end of the Cold War, forces have been unleashed that were tamped down for centuries by dictators. It makes it much harder to govern. It makes it harder to organize people, much harder to find the common interest, said Kerry, and that is complicated by a rise of sectarianism and religious extremism that is prepared to employ violent means to impose on other people a way of thinking and a way of living that is completely contrary to everything the United States of America has ever stood for. So we need to keep in mind what our goals are and how complicated this world is that we're operating in. So they want control of the internet because they do not like what people are saying. It's going against whatever they say. Everyone is not falling into line with their common interests, and their goal right now is to control what's going on in the internet. That's why President Obama came up with the executive orders to control all communications, including the internet, during the emergency. And they have CISPA that is also pending in the Senate to clamp down and control what is going on in the internet. And they also have, I forgot the exact number, HR, I forgot 3 something, I forgot the number, which also is another bill which will be clamping down on the internet that will make it very difficult for people to use aliases. You'll have to use your real name. They're coming up with a global ID system where you'll have to sign on to the internet. You'll have to fill out a complete profile, just like a driver's license almost. And they will know where you go, where you visited, who you are, and shut you down whenever they want. Now, talking about the internet and what's going on, the New York Times was down today, and they believe it was a cyber attack, and it brought the entire site down. And we'll have to see if there's any more news about this. But then again, when we talk about cyber attacks are a very good way of doing and accomplishing a lot that the government needs to accomplish and to reach their goals. And the main doomsday cyber attack that I talk about will do everything they need if all the events cannot get them to where they want to get to. And if you want to know more about that, go back to my episode 2, which I talk about cyber attacks, and go back to my other episodes, and you will see what I'm talking about. But briefly, what a cyber attack will do, it will shut the power grid, put people into darkness. The president will be able to enact his executive orders, declare martial law. If they haven't passed the UN Arms Treaty or the gun bill, they will be able to confiscate guns. They will also be able to siphon off the money, which will create bail-ins for the banks. And they will be able to blame this all on another country to get us into war. And this is the main doomsday type of scenario. They've been pumping the propaganda about cyber attacks for over a year and a half now. But this does not mean they will not use another type of cyber attack. And another type of cyber attack would be for this fall that everyone's talking about the tapering. They're talking about, um, uh, the markets crashing in October. And actually, I just want to bring up this point. If you look back, when did the Great Depression crash happen? Oh, that's right, October. When did it happen in 2008? Yeah, in October timeframe. So we're coming up to the same time frame now, and we might see the same thing. But they could use the cyber attack to hit the financial institutions. They're building up right now the propaganda that it will be Iran, Syria, some Islamic Muslim terror group, and it's the Al Qasim cyber, army force, and we might see them hit the financial market, the stock market, and bring it to a screeching halt. And the government will say that we were just about to recover. We were showing you that we were recovering. Unemployment was down. And look what Syria and Iran did. And this will bring us into war. And the collapse will be shifted off to another country. And the Fed and government will look like heroes because they're trying to help. And the Fed will double down its efforts of providing quantitative easing up to 170 billion a month, and after that, all hell will break loose. And this is what we're seeing. Listen, everyone. Thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.